Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kevin Wright, and I am the president of Festival Bloomsday Montreal. It is my sad duty tonight to note the passing of one of the founders of the Bloomsday Festival in Montreal. On Sunday, Judith Sherman died at home of a massive heart attack. A quotation from George Bernard Shaw, speaking about himself, highlights the many parallels to her time among us. This is the true joy in life, being used for a purpose recognized by yourself as a mighty one, being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community, and as long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it what I can do. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. For the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle to me. It is a sort of splendid torch which I've got hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. Thank you, Judith, for a brilliant life, bursting with the flame of inspiration. The torch will be passed on. Bon voyage. A proclamation. On February 2nd, 1882, 6,659 years from the reign of Menes, the Pharaoh of Egypt, 4,010 years from the birth of Abraham, 2,634 years from the foundation of Rome, 599 years from the arrival of Thomas Joyce, in the fifth indiction, in the 45th reign of Victoria, at Candlemas, on the Feast of the Purification, on the day after the Feast of St. Bridget of Kildare, patroness of newborns, on Groundhog Day, in the province of Leinster in Dublin, in the suburb of Rathgar, at 41 Brighton Square West, to John Joyce and Mary Jane Joyce nee Murray, was born a son, James Augusta Aloysius Joyce. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the celebration of James Joyce's 139th birthday. This evening, we shall hear some pieces of writing, either by Joyce or by others, which show how his work has its origins in the mists of time. Up until about 100 years ago, the Book of Invasions was considered to be a true historical account of the peopling of Ireland. According to this account, there were several waves of invasion from the time of the flood down to the millennial before the arrival of Christianity. You had the Partholonians, the Firbolg, the Tuatha De Danann, and the Milesians. When the Milesians arrived, the country was in the hands of the Tuatha De Danann. They asked that they be allowed to prepare to defend themselves and that the Milesians sail out beyond the ninth wave in order for this to happen. The Tuatha De Danann were powerful magicians and caused a violent wind to assail the Milesian ships to try to drive them away. However, Amergin, a powerful druid on the Milesian side, began chanting in an attempt to drive the wind back, and they landed safely at Inverskini. When Amergin placed his right foot on Irish soil, he began another chant, which is considered to be the very first poem composed in Ireland. Robert Graham was educated at McGill University, where he received an MA in communications and has retired from one career as a financial planner and now spends his time writing on art and wine. An exhibition he is curating called Three Montreal Photographers Plus will open at the Visual Arts Center in Westmount on May 7th, 2021. Robert will read this piece, the first in a long line of poems from Amergin through Joyce and down onto our day. Robert, Amergin's Charm.
I am the wind on the sea. I am the ocean wave. I am the roar of the sea. I am the stag of seven tines. I am a hawk on a cliff. I am a shining tear of the sun. I am the fairest among herbs. I am a boar for boldness. I am a salmon in a pool. I am a lake on a plain. I am a hill of poetry. I am a word of skill. I am the point of a weapon that pours forth combat. I am the god who fashions fire for a head. Who knows the secrets of the unhewn dolmen? Who but I announces the ages of the moon? Who but I know the place where falleth the sunset? Who calls the cattle from the house of Tera? On whom do the cattle of Tera smile? Who is the troop, the god who fashions edges in a fortress of gangrene? I am a song on a spear, an enchantment of wind.
Thank you, Robert. We've been brought up to think that of the Druids as a priesthood, but there's no evidence for this. They were distinct from the other members of their tribe because they had special gifts. They were considered people of art. The Druid was a mediator, the knower, the repository of the lore of his people. He or she studied such things as astrology, cosmology, physiology, as well as other subjects. Every part of the Druid's wisdom had to be useful in daily life. Some Druids specialized in certain branches of study and became judges, prophets, teachers, poets, satirists. The satirists were greatly feared because it was believed that any mocking satire created would have a dreadful effect on the person being satirized. Anything from raising boils on the victim's skin to causing death. James Joyce was a person on whose bad side you would not want to be. If he was vexed, the vexer often ended up in his writing in a very unflattering way. When Joyce tried to have Dubliners published, he almost succeeded until the managing director of Monsell Publishing House reneged and even caused the printing plates to be destroyed. The cause of the rift? Joyce had mentioned people and places by name. In a very small town, this was considered scandalous. What would people say if they saw the names of their friends or family in print? Enraged, Joyce composed Gas from a Burner as a satire against George Roberts to exact his revenge. History does not record whether Roberts suffered any ill effects. Keep an ear open for such names as Billy Walsh, an archbishop, Gregory of the Golden Mouth, Lady Gregory, one of the founders of the Irish literary movement, George Moore, and John Millington Synge, among others. To read Gas from a Burner, please welcome Patrick Gaughan, who was born near a town called Mullingar, almost the dead center of Ireland. He happily received a modest education up to the level of University College Dublin. Having emigrated to Canada in 1963, he has lived in Quebec, where his slowly eroding school Irish has been partially replaced by some French. His career was largely in telecommunications. Patrick, let's hear you.
Thank you, Kevin. Good evening, all. Gas from a burner. Ladies and gents, you are here assembled to hear why earth and heaven trembled because of the black and sinister arts of an Irish writer in foreign parts. I read it 100 times or so, backwards and forwards, down and up, through both ends of a telescope. I printed it all to the very last word. But by the mercy of the Lord, the darkness of my mind was rent, and I saw the writer's foul intent. But I owe duty to Ireland. I held her honour in my hand, this lovely land that always sent her writers and artists to banishment. I did a spirit of Irish fun, betrayed her own leaders one by one. 'Twas Irish humour, wet and dry, flung quicklime into Parnell's eye. 'Twas Irish brains that saved from doom the leaky barge of the Bishop of Rome. For everyone knows the Pope can't belch without the consent of Billy Welsh. O Ireland, my first and only love, where Christ and Caesar are hand and glove. O lovely land where the shamrock grows, allow me, ladies, to blow my nose. To show you, for strictures, I don't care a button. I printed the poems of Mountainy Mutton. And the play he wrote, you've read it, I'm sure, where they talk of bastard, bugger, and whore, and a play on the word and Holy Paul, and some woman's legs I can't recall, written by Moore, a genuine gent that lives on his properties 10%. I printed the mystical books in dozens. I printed the table book of cousins, though asking your pardon as for the verse, 'twould give your heartburn on your arse. I printed folklore from the north and south by Gregory of the Golden Mouth. I printed poets sad, silly, and solemn. I printed Patrick, what do you call him? I printed the great John Millington Sing, who soars above on an angel's wing, in a plague boy shift that he pinched as swag for Monsell's manager's travelling bag. But I draw the line at that bloody fellow that was over here dressed in Austrian yellow, spouting Italian by the hour to O'Leary's Curtis and John Wise Power, and writing of Dublin dirty and dear in a manner that no blackamoor printer could bear. Shite and onions, do you think I'll print the name of the Wellington Monument, Sydney Parade and Sandymount Tram, Downs Cake Shop and Williams Jam? I'm damned if I do, I'm damned to blazes. Talk about the Irish names of places. 'Tis a wonder to me upon my soul, he forgot to mention Curly's Hole. No, ladies, my press shall have no share in so gross a libel on stepmother Erin. I pity the poor, that's why I took a red-headed Scotsman to keep my book. Poor sister Scotland, her doom is fell. She cannot find any more Stuarts to sell. My conscience is fine as Chinese silk, my heart is as soft as buttermilk. Colm can tell you I made a rebate of £100 on the estimate I gave him for his Irish review. I love my country by herrings, I do. I wish you could see what tears I weep when I think of the emigrant train and ship. That's why I publish far and wide my quite illegible railway guide. In the porch of my printing institute, the poor and deserving prostitute plays every night at catch-can with her tight-breeched British artilleryman. From the drunken draggle-tailed Dublin drab, who was it said, resist not evil, I'll burn that book, so help me devil. I'll sing a psalm as I watch it burn, and the ashes I'll keep in a one-handled urn. I'll penance do with farts and groans, kneeling upon my marrow bones, and this very next Lent I will unbear my penitent buttocks to the air, and sobbing beside my printing press, my awful sin I will confess. My Irish foreman from Bannockburn shall dip his right hand in the urn, and sign criss-cross with reverent thumb, memento homo, upon my bum. And thank you all and good evening.
Thank you, Patrick. Now, for the Joyces themselves. According to Richard Ellman, the name Joyce is derived by genealogists from the French joyeux and Latin jocax. And James Joyce, who held that literature should express the Holy Spirit of joy, accepted his name as an omen. He carried a 17th century picture of a Duc de Joyeux in his wallet and asked friends if they could not detect a strong resemblance. He enjoyed referring to himself as James Joyless or as Joyce in the wilderness. Who were the Joyces and where did they originate? The first to bear the name in Ireland was a Tommen de Joyce of Norman Welsh extraction. He married Honora, daughter of an O'Brien Prince of Thomond, in 1283 and settled near the borders of the modern counties of Mayo and Galway. The family was prominent in the affairs of Galway city for 400 years and were one of the 14 tribes of Galway, whose banners can be seen flying on the perimeter of Ayr Square. One of the most famous symbols of Galway is the Claddagh ring, said to have been designed by a Galway silversmith, William Joyce, who learned his trade while a captive of the Barbary pirates in the 17th century. Joyce's family was once well-to-do, but his father, John, managed to let everything slip through his fingers. They were often obliged to move house in the middle of the night because of John's inability to pay the rent. Despite this, he always carried the Joyce family portraits as mementos of better days. The next piece you will hear is a lament over the loss of a young man who died of consumption and is buried in the graveyard of Rahun in Galway. Those of you who've read the story The Dead or seen the film starring Angelica Houston will notice the similarities in the description. She weeps over Rahun, read by Liam Phelim Cox, who was born in Clonmel, County Tipperary, and schooled by Jesuits in London, has spent or misspent 49 years as a teacher and translator. He is a 40-year resident of St. Henri Park and a disillusioned doom watcher. Liam, take it away.
Thank you, Kevin. She weeps over Rahun. Rain on Rahun falls softly, softly falling where my dark lover lies. Sad is his voice that calls me, sadly calling at grey moonrise. Love, hear thou how soft, how sad his voice is, ever calling, ever unanswered, and the dark rain falling then as now. Dark too our hearts, O love, shall lie, and cold as his sad heart has lain under the moon-grey nettles, the black mold, and muttering rain. Trieste, 1913.
Thank you, Liam. James Joyce's first novel is a remake. Originally, he had started writing what he called Stephen Hero, but because he was dissatisfied and it was rejected by at least 20 publishers and was almost 800 pages long, he took the manuscript and threw it into the flames. Nora pulled it out of the fire, saving a good part of it. It became the basis of what became known as Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. In the excerpt you're about to hear, James Joyce lays out his earliest memories as a child who wets the bed, and then we hear of other memories he has about his singing, about a little girl he likes when he's a little bit older. Dante, the governess, does not approve of his friend because she is of a different religion. We will see the child rearing techniques have changed since that time also. Peggy Curran is an award-winning journalist whose career at the Gazette included stints as city columnist, Ottawa correspondent, TV critic, university reporter, feature writer, political and city editor. He has trailed after the Pope, curtsied to the Queen, and stalked Hell's Angels, probed the inner workings of the brain, and examined the lingering impact of tragedies in Lac Mégantic and L'Île Verte. Her first short play, That Night at Mrs. Chown's, is included in Picturesque, Voices of Beaver Hall, which premiered at McGill's Redpath Museum. She is a mosaicist and a collage artist. Her favorite work by James Joyce is Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. Peggy?
This is for Judith and for Jan Gregory. Baby Tucko. Once upon a time, and a very good time it was, there was a moo cow coming down along the road. And this moo cow that was coming down along the road met a nice little boy named Baby Tucko. His father told him that story. His father looked at him through a glass. He had a hairy face. Who was Baby Tucko? The moo cow came down the road where Betty Byrne lived. She sold lemon flat. Oh, the wild rose blossoms on the little green place. He sang that song. That was his song. Oh, the green wotheth botheth. When you wet the bed, first there is a warm time, and then it gets cold. His mother put on the oil sheet. That had a queer smell. His mother had a nicer smell than his father. She played on the piano the sailor's hornpipe for him to dance. He danced. Tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la, tra-la-la-la-la-dee, tra-la-la-la-la. Uncle Charles and Dante clapped. They were older than his father and mother, but Uncle Charles was older than Dante. Dante had two brushes in her press. The brush with the maroon velvet back was for Michael Davitt, and the brush with the green velvet back was for Parnell. Dante gave him a kachoo every time he brought her a piece of tissue paper. The Vances lived in number 7. They had a different father and mother. They were Eileen's father and mother. When they were grown up, he was going to marry Eileen. He hid under the table. His mother said, "Oh, Stephen will apologize." Dante said, "Oh, if not, the eagles will come and pull out his eyes. Pull out his eyes, apologize, apologize, pull out his eyes, apologize, pull out his eyes, pull out his eyes, apologize."
Now, for the origins of the lifelong relationship with the love of his life, the explanation is this. On June 10th, 1904, Joyce was walking down Nassau Street when he caught sight of a tall, good-looking young woman. When he spoke to her, she answered and the conversation continued. She told him she was working at Finn's Hotel, and her accent betrayed the fact that she was from Galway. Her name was a bit comical, Nora Barnacle. Joyce's father was to say when he heard much later what her name was. With a name like that, she'll never leave him. She'll stick to him. They agreed to meet again on June 14th, but she stood him up. Peggy Curran will read the letter Joyce wrote to Nora to make an appointment to meet at a more convenient time.
To Nora Barnacle. 15th of June, 1904. I may be blind. I looked for a long time at the head of a reddish-brown hair and decided it was not yours. I went home quite dejected. I would like to make an appointment, but it might not suit you. I hope you will be kind enough to make one with me, if you have not forgotten me. James A. Joyce.
Just a year or so later, after that meeting with Nora, another origin story began. Joyce was from a huge family, but the person with whom he had the closest relationship was his brother Stanislaus. When Giorgio Joyce was born, the first person back home in Dublin to hear about it was his brother, whom he called Stanley. Peggy reads again for us.
July 29th, 1905. Dear Stanny, The child was born on Thursday last, the 27th of July, at 9 o'clock in the evening. It was almost by accident I was in the city that day, as I had the intention of going away to a bathing place. When I came back from the cafe at 3 o'clock, I found Nora in pain. I had no notion it was for birth, but when it continued for a long time, I went to the landlady and told her. She sent for the midwife, and then there was a proper confusion, if you like. The room was all pulled apart. Nora had hardly anything made, not expecting the event until the end of August. I told her to get everything that was, however, our landlady is a Jewess and gave us everything we wanted. I told her to get everything that I wanted and gave her the money I could lay hands on. Then I went for Dr. Sinigalia, who is one of my pupils. He came at once and returned in time to help Nora give birth to the child. He said I must have miscalculated the time, as it was a perfectly normal child. The people here made me go to dinner with them, and about 9 o'clock, in came the old Aunt Jewess, smiling and nodding. Che un bel mattino, signore. So then I knew an heir was born. It was not very pleasant for me, the 6 hours, but it must have been damn sight worse for Nora. But Dr. Sinigalia told me that she was very brave and hardly uttered a cry, only clapped her hands when she heard it was a boy. She is very well. The child appears to have inherited his father's and grandfather's voices. He has dark blue eyes. He has a great taste for music because while I was nursing him yesterday, he eyed me with great fixity as I whistled several operatic airs for him. Nora gives him her own milk. I wonder, would you mind applying to that much lamented Curran? I am in a slight fix, as you may suppose. I hardly like to do this, but perhaps he will allow me to borrow £1 from him. It's very expensive for me, and I was quite unprepared. Many thanks for your telegram in reply. I'm expecting a letter from you in a parcel, long overdue. I enclose a fortune which a white mouse picked for me this morning. I intended it for the child, but it seems applicable to me. Please attend to the material side of this letter. I hope that you are delighted now that we have made you aunts and uncles. Jim.
In 1936, while working on Work in Progress, which eventually became known as Finnegans Wake, Joyce decided to go to Copenhagen to pick up any useful bits and pieces which he could include in the book. He was also interested in having Ulysses translated into Danish. While he was there, he wrote a letter to his grandson, Stephen. The first of two, they have become books which even a child could read. Colleen Curran is a playwright, novelist, and actor. Her latest novel, Out for Stars, made the long list for the 2020 Stephen Leacock Medal for humor. And she has spent these many pandemic months writing Kitty Calling, lauded as a comic COVID web series masterpiece. It stars Toronto actress Lorna Wilson and Deborah Hale. Colleen will read the story of The Cat and the Devil.
I dedicate this to Jan and Judith. The Cat and the Devil. Bièvre-sur-Mer, 10th of August, 1936. My dear Stevie, I sent you a little cat filled with sweets a few days ago, but perhaps you do not know the story about the cat of Beaugency. Beaugency is a tiny old town on a bank of the Loire, France's longest river. It is also a very wide river for France, at least. And Beaugency is so wide that if you wanted to cross it from one bank to the other, you would have to take at least 1,000 steps. Long ago, the people of Beaugency, when they wanted to cross it, had to go on a boat, for there was no bridge. And they could not make one for themselves or pay anyone else to make one. So what were they to do? The devil, who was always reading the newspaper, heard about this sad state of theirs, so he dressed himself up and came to call on the Lord Mayor of Beaugency, who was also named Monsieur Alfred Bird. Now, This Lord Mayor was very fond of dressing himself too. He wore a scarlet robe and always had a great golden chain round his neck, even when he was fast asleep in bed with his knees in his mouth. The devil told the Lord Mayor what he had read in the newspaper and said he could make a bridge for the people of Beaugency so they could cross the river as often as they liked. He said he could make as good a bridge as ever was made and make it in one single night. The Lord Mayor asked him how much money he wanted for making such a bridge. Oh, no money at all, said the devil. All I ask is that the first person who crosses the bridge shall belong to me. Good, said the Lord Mayor. When the morning came, and when the people of the town put their heads out of their windows, they cried, "Oh, Loire, what a fine bridge!" For they saw a fine, strong bridge thrown across the wide river. All the people ran down to the head of the bridge and looked across it. There was the devil, standing at the other side of the bridge, waiting for the first person who should cross it. But nobody dared to cross it for fear of the devil. Then there was a sound of bugles. Ah, that was a sign for the people to be silent. And the Lord Mayor, Monsieur Alfred Byrne, appeared in his great scarlet robe and wearing his heavy gold chain around his neck. He had a bucket of water in one hand, and under his arm, the other arm, he carried a cat. Now the devil stopped dancing when he saw him from the other side of the bridge and put up his long spyglass. All the people whispered to one another, and the cat looked up at the Lord Mayor because in the town of Beaugency, it was allowed that a cat should look at a Lord Mayor. When he was tired of looking at the Lord Mayor, well, because even a cat gets tired of looking at a Lord Mayor, he began to play with the Lord Mayor's heavy golden chain. When the Lord Mayor came to the head of the bridge, every man held his breath and every woman held her tongue. The Lord Mayor put the cat down on the bridge, and quick as a thought, splash! He emptied the whole bucket of water over it. The cat was now between the devil and the bucket of water, made up his mind quite as quickly, and ran with his ears back across the bridge and into the devil's arms. The devil was as angry as the devil himself. "Monsieur les Baranchines," he shouted across the bridge, "vous n'êtes pas des belles gens du tout. Vous n'êtes que les chats." And he said to the cat, "Oh, j'ai ici mon petit chat. Tu as peur, mon petit chouchou? Oh, tu as froid, mon pauvre petit chou? Oh, chat, viens ici. Le diable t'emporte. On va se chauffer tous les deux." And off he went with the cat. And since that time, the people of that town are called les chats de Beaugency. But the bridge is there still, and there are boys walking and riding and playing about it. I hope you like this story. No. Oh, P.S. The devil mostly speaks a language of his own called belly babble, which he makes up himself as he goes along. But when he's very angry, he can speak quite bad French very well, though some who have heard him say he has a strong Dublin accent.
Thank you, Colleen. The Cats of Copenhagen is a slightly younger sister of The Cat and the Devil. It too was a letter written to Stephen Joyce by his doting grandfather while he was still in Copenhagen. To read for us this evening is Miss Pat Machin, a retired teacher who enjoys running the world from the back of the room. Take it away, Pat.
The Cats of Copenhagen. Alas, I cannot send you a Copenhagen cat because there are no cats in Copenhagen. There are lots and lots of fish and bicycles, but there are no cats. And there are no policemen. All the Danish policemen pass the day at home in bed. They smoke big Danish cigars and drink buttermilk all day long. There are lots and lots of young boys dressed in red on bicycles going around all day with telegrams and letters and postcards. These are all for the policemen, from old ladies who want to cross the road, and boys who are writing home for more sweets, and girls who want to know something about the moon. The policemen read them all in bed, smoking all the time, and drinking buttermilk. And then they give their orders. And the red boys go back and tell everyone just what to do. When I come to Copenhagen again, I will bring a cat and show the Danes how it can cross the road without any instruction from a policeman. And it would be much cheaper. Think of that. For a cat to show them what to do. Huh. Just fancy a cat staying in bed all day smoking cigars. And as for buttermilk, no cat would drink it at all. And then there is such a lot of fish for them. What do you think of this?
Thank you, Pat. Ulysses is a book based on the wanderings of a father in search of a son, and a son in search of a father. Each episode in the story is loosely based on Homer's epic saga, the Odyssey. In the section you're about to hear, we meet Leopold Bloom for the very first time in the kitchen of his home at 7 Eccles Street on the north side of the Liffey in Dublin. The advertising canvasser is getting breakfast ready on June 16, 1904, when we see him in an interaction with the household cat. The encounter introduces Leopold as a person sympathetic to the more vulnerable creatures in life and gives us some insight as to why he will take an interest in Stephen Dedalus, who was introduced in chapter 1, labeled Telemachus. To read Calypso for us this evening is Clive Brewer, who's from the UK. He was born and brought up in Bournemouth, went to university at Sheffield, worked in London for a while, and emigrated to Montreal in 1975, and has lived here ever since. The mixture of places probably explains why his accent is also a mixture. He worked in IT for 40 years and now concentrates on his real interests: history, literature, hiking, and above all, theater. Clive, now it's you.
Mr. Leopold Bloom ate with relish the inner organs of beasts and fowls. He liked thick giblet soup, nutty gizzards, a stuffed roast heart, liver slices fried with crust crumbs, fried hencods roe. Most of all, he liked grilled mutton kidneys, which gave to his palate a fine tang of faintly scented urine. Kidneys were in his mind as he moved about the kitchen softly, writing her breakfast things on the humpy tray. Gelid light and air were in the kitchen, but out of doors, gentle summer morning everywhere made him feel a bit peckish. The coals were reddening. Another slice of bread and butter. 3, 4. Right. She didn't like her plate full. Right. He turned from the tray, lifted the kettle off the hob, and set it sideways on the fire. It sat there dull and squat, its spout stuck out. Cup of tea soon. Good. Mouth dry. The cat walked stiffly round a leg of the table with tail on high. Meow! Oh, there you are, Mr. Bloom said, turning from the fire. The cat mewed in answer and stalked again stiffly round a leg of the table, mewing. Just how she stalks over my writing table. Purr! Scratch my head. Purr! Mr. Bloom watched curiously, kindly, the little black form. Clean to see, the gloss of her sleek hide, the white button under the butt of her tail, the green flashing eyes. He bent down to her, his hands on his knees. Milk for the pussins, he said. Meow, the cat cried. They call them stupid. They understand what we say better than we understand them. She understands all she wants to. Vindictive, too. Cruel. A nature. Curious mice never squeal. Seem to like it. Wonder what I look like to her. Height of a tower? No, she can jump me. Afraid of the chickens she is, he said mockingly. Afraid of the chooks. I never saw such a stupid pussins as the pussins. Meow, the cat said loudly. She blinked up out of her avid, shame-closing eyes, mewing plaintively and long, showing him her milk-white teeth. He watched the dark eye slits narrowing with greed until her eyes were green stones. Then he went to the dresser, took the jug Hanlon's milkman had just filled for him, poured warm bubbled milk on a saucer, and set it slowly on the floor. Grrr, she cried, running to lap. On the doorstep, he felt in his hip pocket for the latchkey. Not there. Oh, in the trousers I left off. I must get it. Potato I have. Creaky wardrobe. No use disturbing her. He pulled the hall door to after him very quietly, more, till the footleaf dropped gently over the threshold, a limp lid. Locked shut. Well, all right, till I come back anyhow. He crossed to the bright side, avoiding the loose cellar flap of number 75. The sun was nearing the steeple of George's church. It'll be a warm day, I fancy, especially in these black clothes. Feel it more. Black conducts, reflects, is it? The heat? But I couldn't go in that light suit and make a picnic of it. His eyelids sank quietly often as he walked in happy warmth. He halted before Glugac's window, staring at the hanks of sausages, polonies, black and white. The shiny links packed with force meat felt his gaze, and he breathed in tranquilly the lukewarm breath of cooked spicy pig's blood. Mr. Bloom pointed quickly. "Threepence, please." "Thank you, sir." 2 letters and a card lay on the hall floor. He stooped and gathered them. Mrs. Marion Bloom. His quickened heart slowed at once. Bold hand, Mrs. Marion. All day. Entering the bedroom, he half closed his eyes and walked through warm yellow twilight towards her tousled head. Who are the letters for? He looked at them. Mullingar? Millie? A letter from me from Millie, he said carefully, and a card to you, and a letter for you. He laid her card and letter on the twill bedspread near the curve of her knees. Do you want the blind up? Letting the blind up by gentle tugs halfway, his backward eye saw her glance at the letter and tuck it under her pillow. That do? He asked, turning. She was reading the card, propped on her elbow. She got the things, she said. He waited till she had laid the card aside and curled herself back slowly with a snug sigh. Hurry up with that tea, she said. I'm parched. Well, the kettle is boiling, he said. Scald the teapot. On the boil, sure enough, a plume of steam from the spout. He scalded and rinsed out the teapot and put in 4 full spoons of tea, tilting the kettle then to let the water flow in. Having set it to draw, he took off the kettle, crushed the pan flat on the live coals, and watched the lump of butter slide and melt. While he unwrapped the kidney, the cat mewed hungrily against him. Give her too much meat, she want mouse. Say they don't want it pork. Kosher. Here. He let the blood-smeared paper fall to her and dropped the kidney amid the sizzling butter sauce. Papa. He sprinkled it through his fingers, ring-wise from the chipped egg cup. The tea was drawn. He filled his own moustache cup, sham-crowned derby, smiling. Silly Millie's birthday gift. Only 5 she was then. No, wait, 4. I gave her the amberoid necklace she broke. He smiled, pouring. Oh, Millie Bloom, you are my darling. You are my looking-glass from night till morning. I'd rather have you without a farthing than Katie Keogh with her arse and garden. He prodded a fork into the kidney and slapped it over, then fitted the teapot on the tray. Its hump bumped as he took it up. Everything on it? Bread and butter? 4. Sugar? Spoon? A cream? Yes. He carried it upstairs, his thumb hooked in the teapot handle. Nudging the door open with his knee, he carried the tray in and set it on the chair by the bedhead. What a time you were, she said. She doubled a slice of bread in her mouth and asked, What time is the funeral? 11, I think, he answered. I didn't see the paper. There's a smell of burn, she said. Did you leave anything on the fire? The kidney, he cried suddenly.
Thank you, Clive. Finnegans Wake, the last work by James Joyce, is often considered his most difficult. In contrast to Ulysses, which takes place mostly during the day, Finnegans Wake is the book of the night. It is a dream in which time and place no longer have meaning. Characters arise and merge into other characters. Time collapses into a meaningless swirl. All of this is what you would expect in a dream. Logic has nothing to do here. Words no longer have the same meanings. Some words have been estimated to have at least 10 possible meanings, and over 60 languages have been used in its composition. The story doesn't even start on the first page where we find part of a sentence on the first line. The beginning of that sentence is on the last page, and the whole thing is a big circle, always beginning again. One of the characters is Anna Livia Pluribel, who merges her identity with the river Liffey, which runs down from the Wicklow Hills through the city of Dublin to swirl into the sea. She's also the wife of Henry Humphrey Chimpton Earwicker, a publican from Chapel Izard, a suburb of Dublin, which is conflated with the giant Finn McCool, whose head is said to be at Howth. His body stretches out under the city of Dublin, and his toes are the mounds in the Phoenix Park. This section, the ending and the beginning, relates what happens to Anna Livia as she begins to merge and transform, as she goes back to her origins. This section is dedicated to the memory of Judith Sherman. For I feel I could near to faint away into the deeps, Anamor's leap. Let me lean, just a leap, if you let. Bold, strong, big, tighter, all girls is weak, at times, so. While you're adamant ever, whoosh, that wind as if out of nowhere, as on the night of Apophis, jumps, shoots, throbst into me mouth like a bogan arrows. Lud, the good of the lashlands, how he whips me cheeks. See, here, where reach, island, bridge, where you meet I, the day, remember. Why, there that moment, and us two only. I was but teen, a Tyler's dot. The swanky suits was boosting always. Sure him, he was like to me a fod. But the swaggerest swell off Shack Volstrit, and the fiercest freaky ever followed a pining child around the slippery table with a fork full of fat. But a king of whistlers, Skula, when he propped me Atlas against his goose and light our 2 candles for our singers' duos on the sewing machine. I'm sure he squirted juice in his eyes to make them flash for frightening me. Still in all, he was awful fond to me. Who'll search for find me colors now on the hilly droops of Wicklow fells? But I read in To Be Continued's tale that while bluebells blows, there'll still be self-skirts. There'll be others, but none so for me. Yet he never knew we seen us before, night after night, so that I long to go on too. And still, withal, one time you'd stand for against me, fairly laughing in your bark and tan billows of branches for to fan me coolly. And I'd lie as quiet as a mouse and shadow with a sheeny stare to pierce me rawly. And I'd frozen up and pray for thaw. 3 times in all. I was the pet of everyone then, a principal girl. And you, the pantomimes, Vulcan courser goth. The envision of Indoland, and by Thor you looked it. My lips went livid, for from the joy of fear, like almost now. How? How you said how you'd give me the keys of me heart, and we'd be married till death to us part. And though death do us part, oh mine, only, no, now it's me who's got to give, as Dove herself div, in this lin. And can it be it's now, forever? Alas, I wished I'd better glances to peer to you through this baylight's growing. But you're changing, Akushla. You're changing from me. I can feel. Or is it me? I'm getting mixed, brightening up and tightening down. Yes, you're changing, son husband, and you're turning. I can feel you for a daughter wife from the hills again. Lamaya, and she is coming, swinging in my hindmost, divil taking me on me tail. Just a whisk, brisk, sly, spry, spink, spank, sprint of a thing. There's some more. Saltering, Saltarella, come to her own. I pity your old self I used to. Now a younger's there. Try not to part. Be happy, dear ones. May I be wrong, for she'll be sweet for you, as I was sweet when I came down out of me mother. My great blue bedroom, the air so quiet, scarce a cloud, in peace and silence. I could have stayed up there for always only. It's something fails us. First we feel, then we fall. And let her reign now if she likes, greatly or strongly as she likes. Anyway, let her reign, for my time is come. I done me best when I was let, thinking always, if I go, all goes. 100 cares, a tithe of troubles, and is there one who understands me? One in 1,000 of years of nights. All me life I have been, lived among them, but now they are becoming loath to me, and I am loathing their little warm tricks, and loathing their mean cozy turns, and all the greedy gushes out through their small souls, and all the lazy leaks down over their brash bodies. How small it's all, and me letting on to myself always, and lilting on all the time. I thought you were all glittering with the noblest of carriage. You're only a bumpkin. I thought you the great in all things, in guilt and in glory. You're but a puny. Home, my people were not their sort out beyond there, so far as I can. For all the bold and bad and bleary they are blamed, the sea hags. No, nor for all our wild dances in all their wild din. I can see myself among them, alla nuvia pulchra belled, how she was handsomed, the wild Amasia, when she would seize to my other breast. And what is she, weird, haughty Niluna, that she will snatch from my ownest hair? For 'tis they are the stormies. Ho hang, hang ho, and the clash of our cries till we spring to be free. Ora volas, they says, never heed of your name, but I'm loathing them that's here, and all I loathe. Loonly in me loonness, for all their faults, I am passing out. Oh, bitter ending. I'll slip away before they're up. They'll never see, nor know, nor miss me. And it's old and old, it's sad and old. It's sad and weary. I go back to you, my cold father, my cold, mad father, my cold, mad, fiery father, till the near sight of the mere size of him, the moils and moils of it, moan and owning, makes me sea silt, salt sick, and I rush, my only, into your arms. I see them rising. Save me from those terrible prongs. 2 more, 1, 2, Mormons, more. So, Ave Laval, my leaves have drifted from me, all, but one clings still. I'll bear it on me to remind me of lift. So soft this morning hours. Yes, carry me along, Taddy, like you done through the toy fair. If I seen him bearing down on me now under white spread wings, like he'd come from archangels, I sink, I die down over his feet, humbly, dumbly, only to wash up. Yes, tide, there's where first we pass through grass, be hush, the bush, to wish, a gull, gulls, far calls, coming far, and here, us then, Finn again, take, but softly, remember me, till thou sends thee lips, the keys to, given away, alone, a last, a loved, along the river run, past even Adams, from swerve of shore to bend of bay, brings us by a commodious vicus of recirculation back to Hoth Castle and environs. A toast to James Joyce, to Judith, and to all of us in these very peculiar times. Please raise a glass if you have one. May the face of every good news and the back of every bad news be towards us. thanks to everyone who helped to make this evening possible. An event such as this could not happen without the help and collaboration of several people. I would like to acknowledge the participation of our readers this evening. Robert Graham, Patrick Gahagan, Eggy Curran, Colleen Curran, Pat Machin, Liam Phelan Cox, and Clive Brewer. Thanks also to Kathleen Fee, Bloomsday's artistic director, Jordan Giroux, our web person, and Edmund Nash, the technician who made sure that everything ran smoothly on the internet. I must also thank our sponsors, the McGill Community for Lifelong Learning, the St. Patrick's Society of Montreal, the Embassy of Ireland, the Zellers Foundation, Heritage Canada, the Concordia School of Irish Studies, and the individuals who've made donations to Festival Bloomsday Montreal to make it possible for us to bring you occasions such as this. Thank you to every one of you. Keep an eye on our website, bloomsdaymontreal.com, for any upcoming events. Slán Lat. Bonne soirée.